have to fear is
In war, there is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
You found your way to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live with David Barton and Rick Green. Thank you for joining us today. Visit us online at wallbuilders.com and wallbuilderslive.com. And David, today we're going to add a website to that. Big battle over Common Core all across the country for some time now. And there's a website coming out that's going to give people some tools so they can get engaged in their community as well.
Absolutely, and you're right. Common Core is a big battle. It is something that's growing and gaining a lot of steam. It's from bubbling up from the bottom, not from the top down. I don't know of any real national group that does this, but there are local groups everywhere. And as we see this gaining steam and more people learn about it, the more opposed they become to it, including teachers as well. So there is a new website called Halt Common Core, H-A-L-T, Halt Common Core. haltcommoncore.com. You go there. There is an interactive map. You can click on that map, whatever state you're in. It'll tell you all the groups in your state that are known, that oppose Common Core. You can get involved with them. It also has a map that'll show you what's happening legislatively in your state and what's going there. Several states within the last 2 months have really taken action on this. You've seen Indiana. You've seen Michigan working on this. We had an interview a couple months ago on Michigan, what they were doing. But Bobby Jindal in Louisiana, it's a big issue in Oklahoma, so it's really kind of catching on across the nation as states are starting to want to back out of this thing, and for good reason. As a matter of fact, Oklahoma is the most recent to take action on this legislatively. And one of the senators up there, Josh Brecheen, interesting story. He was speaking on the floor of the Senate, and as he was speaking on the floor of the Senate, he got into Common Core, and they've been debating Common Core, so that's no big deal. But then he started talking in a way that became fairly pornographic fairly quick. And talking to folks that were there, they said, it got so bad with the pornography he was using that up in the gallery, parents started taking their kids out of the Senate gallery because they didn't want them to hear the pornography. After a couple of minutes of this going on, even the president of the Senate started to head to the mic, and it was at that point that Senator Brecheen kind of says, oh, by the way, did I not tell you this is out of Common Core? I mean, if it's inappropriate for here in the Senate, what are we doing teaching it to kids in the classroom? And that was really a shot over the bow because, my gosh, this isn't just an academic debate. Look what's in this stuff. And so it's interesting, but today we've got two guys on from Oklahoma, the House leader that really introduced this, Representative Jason Nelson, and then also Senator Josh Brecheen, who is doing this over on the Senate side. And it'll be an interesting update on where they are and what needs to be done to get this over the final hump on this Common Core. But in the meantime, whatever state you're in, you can go to haltcommoncore.com. You can see there are the 8 major problems with Common Core. You'll see all sorts of documentation and short videos and things that you can use to help others understand what the problem is. You can get the stuff to your local school board. You can get it to your state reps, etc. This is a winnable battle, and the momentum is certainly starting to go our direction.
Well, in fact, as you were talking about, David, I pulled up the website. Very easy to use. I love it when a website has the map like this. I clicked on Oklahoma as you were talking about it. It's all color-coded, so you can actually see the states that are rejecting Common Core, states that have pending legislation. You click on the state, for instance, as you were talking about Oklahoma, and it talks about the legislation that's been passed and the status of what can be done. So there's something for everybody to do here if they want to be a part of stopping this nonsense and getting some good stuff back in the classroom. So anybody can plug in. So visit that website, haltcommoncore.com. We're going to have 2 guests with us when we return, Senator Josh Brecheen and Representative Jason Nelson from Oklahoma, right in the middle of the fight there, and they've got an action item for you that you can participate in helping make this happen in Oklahoma. So stay tuned. Back in a moment with WallBuilders Live.
Hey guys, this is Tim Barton with WallBuilders, and I know you hear my dad and Rick talk a lot about our founding fathers, about the original intent of our nation, the constitutional heritage that we have, and really we've seen how far we've slipped away from that. And I know a lot of us, as we hear my dad and Rick talk, think, I wish there was a place that I could go and I could see these documents and I could read and learn about the founding fathers firsthand, see the things they did. And I want to give you some websites today that can help you accomplish that very thing. If you get online, you can go to places like Library of Congress and you can look under their Century of Lawmaking or historical documents. You can go to the Avalon Project, to the Founders Constitution, to Google Books, or even the Internet Archives, or you can just go to WallBuilders' website. We have a section for our library, and under that section we have different subgroups for historical documents, historical writings, even a place where you can get helpful links to find out more information about other websites where you can do research for yourself and find the truth for yourself. Friends, this is a time that we need to know who we are and where we came from. WallBuilders.com is a great place to go.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live with David Barton and Rick Green. Thanks for staying with us. Our guest today, we actually have two legislators from the great state of Oklahoma. They've had a phenomenal victory there over Common Core, and we need the governor to sign it. We're going to talk about what the bill does and how you can help to make this happen in Oklahoma, because it's going to affect us all over the country. This could be a shot heard around the world on this education issue. Senator Josh Brecheen is with us, and Representative Jason Nelson. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, guys, tell me, first of all, why take on the fight with Common Core?
Well, I think for me, it was the fact that there was a lot of promises made about Common Core that simply weren't delivered. They promised higher standards, and that's not what we received. I mean, the Fordham Institute, which is actually a backer of Common Core, graded our standards basically to be equivalent to Common Core. So why would we be willing to cede control of our state's education system to a national group that's heavily influenced by the federal government simply to get standards that are virtually the same as what we had before, when really what we need to do for students in Oklahoma is come up with a set of superior standards. And this bill does those two things, reasserts the state's control over our standards and assessments, and guarantees that the standards that we do come up with in the next couple of years are superior to any previous set of standards. So
the first issue is just keeping it at the state level, letting you guys as a state decide what your standards are going to be for your kids to learn and what a high school diploma means in Oklahoma. All right, so after that, then obviously based on the video that I saw, Senator, and the response of some of your senators, just reading some of the curriculum that is recommended by Common Core woke up a lot of folks.
No, it did. I want to mention the Bluest Eye is a very small part. I mean, that was simply anecdotal. But when there's smoke, there's fire. And the fire is there's several books. The Story Killers, I would encourage people to read. It talks about the aligned curricula that questions American exceptionalism, the faith of the Pilgrims, whether or not our founders had a true understanding of liberty as they drafted the Constitution, extreme liberal environmentalist viewpoints. These are all things that for Oklahomans we're concerned about. And instead of the buying power of textbooks that that Texas was driving, now we're going to have the buying power and the exposure to a national scale that I am concerned, I think many parents are concerned, leaves us vulnerable. And as Abraham Lincoln once said, the philosophy in the classroom in one generation will be the governing philosophy in the next.
Well, you mentioned the book, and obviously we're not going to go into the graphic detail, but the things that are recommended there, I mean, are beyond pornographic, and I mean, it's just awful stuff, and they're having our kids read this. And you said anecdotal, but isn't that the heart of the problem right there? If you don't do the standards, and it's some national organization basically going around you as the legislature and as a state, straight into our classrooms, isn't that what you risk, is that even those anecdotal stories, and we're getting them all over the country. I mean, everything you just mentioned to, religious issues, I mean, you name it. I mean, it's just been problem after problem after problem. And when you don't have control and you give it up to some national organization like that, those anecdotal stories are just going to increase.
Well, and you could make an argument that Oklahoma did last year when we came up with an alternative suggested reading list to address concerns about books such as The Bluest Eyes, But the reality is it's a big step towards really ceding control of our state's education system to people outside the state. And it's just a dangerous precedent. And so while you can mitigate some of these issues now, that's not to say you'll be able to in 5 or 10 years. And Rick, I've heard you and David talk about before national popular vote, where it would be a situation states would enter, in effect, a consortia where Oklahomans may vote for candidate A for president, but because the other states in the group voted for candidate B, we have to vote for candidate B. And Oklahomans, I don't believe, support that. It's certainly was not something that was considered by the House. And I think it's a similar it's an easier way to maybe understand what's happening here. Are we willing to give up the sovereignty and the control our state has over our education system? And perhaps, and maybe almost certainly over time lose our voice.
Yeah, it's a huge step towards completely losing the state, having any say over what your state's going to become. We just become this, it's just one. Granted, we're one nation, but I mean, our founders were adamant about the fact that that each state should keep its own personality and its own concepts and all of those things. And man, we get further and further down the road away from that. Now, the bill itself, guys, what does the bill do that you guys have passed and we're encouraging Governor Fallon to pass?
The true repeal of Common Core.
Yeah, it's a complete repeal immediately. It does establish a pretty robust process to develop new standards that will be superior to our old standards and to Common Core, and we require documentation to that effect so we can make sure they're in fact better and that it's not a cut and paste of Common Core or our previous standards. And it puts in place a firewall of sorts that just very explicitly prohibits the state from ceding control or authority over our standards or assessments. And
you guys passed this in the House and the Senate's passed it. You're waiting on Governor Fallon to sign it.
That's correct.
And what can our listeners do to help with that? Because my understanding is she wants to hear from a lot of folks to say yes before she signs this, and we need to let the voice be heard.
One of the things that I think that we should certainly share with the governor is expectation that we have higher standards, and for people to call and support the governor in that and say that we can still get higher standards going this route. Probably we're almost certainly going to have higher standards than what we've had before, and just encourage her from that standpoint that it's the right course for Oklahoma to take. And but it's on her desk, and she's got to do something. I think by the 7th of June.
And Rick, I would just add to that for the detractors, we talked about, Representative Nelson and I talked about earlier about how it looks like Halloween's coming early in June. People are saying that all these things are going to happen. People are reporting we're going to lose federal funds. That's not the case. We're not going to lose federal funds. We gain over control over our entire $5 billion in Oklahoma, our ability to direct how those dollars are spent. What we may lose, if like Washington, is we may lose the flexibility, not the dollars, but the flexibility over 20% of Title I funds, which of the $5 billion total spent on common education is 0.5% of our total state budget. So we gain control over such a small concern. And I would just add that people that believe in the 10th Amendment, that all powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution are reserved to the states, they need to call Governor Fallon's office. And I've got a number here. It's 405-521-2342, 405-521-2342, and press 2 and talk to her secretary and encourage her, as all of us are hoping, that we will be the first state to do a true repeal of Common Core.
405-521-2342 is the governor's office, and that's your chance to let your voice be heard. And obviously our listeners in Oklahoma are going to have the strongest voice there, but it doesn't hurt to hear from everybody else around the country. I'm sure she'd love to be known as a leader that a lot of people are excited about what she's doing. I mean, this true repeal of Common Core is something that millions of people around the country would like to see happen. And so you can make that phone call whether you're in Oklahoma or outside the state. Hold on, guys. Got to take a quick break. We'll be right back on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. The teachings of God's Word are the best friend civil government has because these teachings deal with the heart. Only by dealing with the heart can crime be prevented, for as Jesus explained in Matthew 5, all crime comes from the heart. Understanding this, Daniel Webster, the great defender of the Constitution, once declared, "The cultivation of the religious sentiment represses licentiousness. It inspires respect for law and order and gives strength to the whole social fabric. Whatever makes men good Christians makes them good citizens. Indeed, it is not the good Christians whom the police arrest for armed robbery, gang activity, or other such crimes." Understanding this, the Founding Fathers encouraged religious instruction, for as Daniel Webster so accurately noted, good Christians make good citizens.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Our guest today from the great state of Oklahoma, Senator Josh Brecheen, is with us, and Representative Jason Nelson. And these guys have just passed the first complete repeal of Common Core. And guys, my understanding is Oklahoma initially embraced this, so this is a huge blow to Common Core. This is a great victory because you guys have seen it and lived with it and said no, we don't want it.
And what's gratifying about it is the strong vote in the House and the Senate. I mean, rarely do you get this kind of support.
What was it? What was
on education issues? So,
what was your vote in both chambers?
It was 71 of the 101 members of the House voted for the bill.
In the Senate, it was 31-10.
Yeah.
Wow. So huge margins.
Yeah.
What was the turning? What turned it? I mean, because like I said, this was embraced initially. So what changed everybody's attitude?
Control. People have come to realization when we started hearing from Arnie Duncan calling our state saying, if you do this, then these will be the repercussions, as small as those repercussions are. People started realizing this is about control. The federal government was trying to take away our ability to direct education standards in the state of Oklahoma, and not just standards, teacher leader effectiveness, RSA, all these things. And you're now in a position with the waiver, we're having to ask permission. And if we don't get permission from the federal government, then this small threat is there about loss of flexibility.
And I'll tell you the practical part of it is, I've been telling people that the issue had developed its own weather system, which is to say that it started out initially with some folks in the grassroots that were starting to raise issues, but it really just came into full bloom earlier this year, where the concern just became organic everywhere, and the public was finally tuning into the issue, and people were starting to call their legislators and talk about it in a way that had not happened before. It took a while to get to this point for people to see what was happening, and that coupled with people beginning to understand how much control we've already given up, I think made it easy to vote for the bill.
That's actually kind of exciting the way you described that, Representative Nelson. I mean, that tells us right there the system actually works. Like you said, it was the people rising up and eventually got so upset, let their legislators know, and now we have the result. What would you say to other legislators in other states about Common Core and your decision to reject it and why they should?
Well, I would say that it's, get good information, listen to the voters, and encourage, grassroots organizations that are interested in fighting against Common Core, encourage them to keep going, and sometimes help them in terms of how to do outreach. I mean, a lot of us have run campaigns. Obviously, somebody helped us run a successful campaign, or we wouldn't be in the legislature. But to kind of go along with them and help, because we need the grassroots, and of course the grassroots needs the support of the legislature. So it's just work with those folks, and the more the public understands, the more the tide will change. And it does get to a tipping point. It did here. I'm not even sure we were at the tipping point at the beginning of session, but we were certainly there at the end.
Senator Brecheen, when you read from that book, did that change some of the votes in the Senate, or do you think did it confirm? I mean, what do you think happened when some of them realized what was being put in front of our children?
I think it's important to know the graphic content that I read on the floor of the Senate. This graphic content. What the point was is that this is the viewpoint of a rapist raping a child, and it's on these. I talked on the Senate floor how you go to corestandards.org and you gain access on corestandards.org, which is where our teachers are being sent to learn about the standards, and I directed them on the Senate floor to go there and find this book and another book that's got controversial content. It's getting into the mind of a rapist. I mean, what parent thinks that is acceptable for our children to get inside the mind of a rapist, regardless of the graphic nature that's described? And again, that's anecdotal. There's so much more to this argument, but it goes to the heart of, I truly believe there's a liberal intent behind Common Core, and I believe that exposes it.
Yeah.
And one thing I would say along those lines is the bill, the real work is yet to come if the governor signs the bill, because we very clearly outline the idea of local control in this bill that had never really been done before in our state statutes. But we say that learning, instructional material, books, these kinds of things are determined at a local level. So if your child shows up at home with some kind of a weird book, don't come to the state. You got to go to your local school board. So it really pulls back control from outside interests, returns, the maintenance and establishment idea in our Constitution over the system to the state legislature, but then we give power to the parents in the bill through outlining their rights to go review the material and petition their school board, and then say what the role of the school board is. So if you are getting books or concerns about material, those kinds of things, the bill very clearly outlines how that should be dealt with at a local level.
Well, guys, I got to say congratulations. A year or two ago, this would have been everybody thought it was impossible to do this, that this train could not be stopped. And so this is a major victory for you guys, and I think it could be it could start a victory across the country. Your recommendation, it sounds like, first and foremost, is make that call to Governor Fallin.
Rick, absolutely. I mean, 405-521-2342. 405-521-2342, and call and press number 2. The governor has made the comments that she is wanting to hear from parents and teachers. We've got until, Representative Nelson, is it June 7th? Is that correct?
I believe so.
We have got until June 7th. It's absolutely important that parents rise up, and evil cannot flourish unless good people do nothing. And we have got to make sure that those of us that believe in the 10th Amendment and walling our kids off against amoral content, that we do something about it.
We'll have that number on our website today at wallbuilderslive.com. It's 405-521-2342. Senator Josh Brecheen, Representative Jason Nelson, God bless you guys. Thank you for coming on WallBuilders Live.
Thanks, sir.
Well, we're back now in studio with David Barton. David, I tell you, that could happen in every state. I mean, it was clear from what they said. This wasn't something that started with the legislators. It started with the people back home in the communities.
That's right, and it can happen in every state. It needs to happen in every state, and right now it needs to happen in Oklahoma. And if Oklahoma can get this thing pushed over the top of the hill, it will become an impetus for other states. As you rightly pointed out, this is something where everybody can sound off on this. Mary is a good lady. She's a good governor. I know Mary. But she wants to hear from the people, and she needs to hear from the people. And it's the kind of a thing where she gets a lot of pressure because she is the head of the National Governors Association. She's the head of all 50 governors right now. And there's a lot on the other side of this thing. They're pushing for it. Jeb Bush, former governor of Florida, is pushing. There are several Republican governors pushing for this. Governor Kasich up in Ohio is for Common Core. So, and by the way, the reason is a lot of big businesses for Common Core. In fact, I was with a legislator last night who got taken out by the Chamber of Commerce because he was the leader opposing Common Core. Chamber of Commerce has bought into this thing that, this will give you job-ready kids. They come out of school, they'll be job-ready. That's what you want in business. No, they're only job-ready if they get good content. And Common Core is not good content. And the business guys haven't looked at the content. They've just been told by the bureaucrats that this will make you job-ready kids. It will help business. And so this guy, the leader in Arkansas, against Common Core, got taken out by the business community. So there's a lot of Republican guys that are supportive of Chamber of Commerce, whatnot, that are on the other side. So Mary has a lot of pressure on both sides from this. She does need to hear from the people. As both as Josh and Jason both pointed out, this passed by large mega margins in the House and the Senate. So pretty clear where the people's representatives are on this. Mary just needs to hear from everybody.
Yeah, and it's not. I mean, it doesn't take 30 seconds, a minute to make the phone call or send the email and let them know where you stand. Especially our listeners in Oklahoma, your voice is going to mean the most on this. But don't you think it also helps to hear from people around the country?
It does help from here because you get a sense of what's going on around the country. I mean, there's no question that it helps to hear from others. And by the way, most people are going to have some friends somewhere in Oklahoma, probably on your Facebook list or somewhere on your contact list, or maybe a relative or family member. And if you do, get them to call too. This is a thing where we only have a few days to be able to do this because Mary's holding off a few days till she signs the bill. She has just a certain set number of days until she has to sign or veto the bill or not sign the bill. And so she needs to hear fairly quickly on this. So everybody needs to call, and they also need to talk to the folks they know in Oklahoma, get them to call and activate their list as well. We need everybody calling that can. This is a winnable battle. It's in our hands. It'll be really nice for Mary to hear from everybody.
And if you want to see what's happening in your state on the issue, visit the website haltcommoncore.com. It looks, just a quick glance at the map there, it looks like over half the states have some sort of activity. Either legislation is pending or on its way or has passed, but about half the states have nothing happening yet, so you could be the one in your state to help get it started. Sure appreciate you listening today. You've been listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided.